He's already said.
All questions will be directed at the pastor after the presentation. Thank you. All right, good afternoon, everyone. Happy Sabbath.
Happy Sabbath.
As you know, the talk this afternoon is about reducing or decreasing our cholesterol level naturally. How many of you were here the last time when we talked about how cholesterol affects the heart? I see a few hands. Anybody else? Not everybody? We still have that video from the last time. I don't know if y'all want to see it. And the reason why is because cholesterol is one of the ingredients that contributes to heart disease. And in this country, guess what's the #1 killer of Americans? Heart disease. Heart disease, in the form especially of heart attacks and strokes. The other killer is cancer. And so maybe we can look at the video, if that's okay. That will give you an idea of how cholesterol affects us, and it's pretty, I think it's pretty neat. So enjoy.
Atherosclerosis is the buildup of fatty deposits, including cholesterol, in the walls of arteries. It's a major cause of cardiovascular disease, including stroke and heart attack, and contributes to the death of around 70 million people worldwide every year. This short presentation illustrates the key stages in its development and its main impact on cardiovascular health. Cholesterol is a natural, fat-like substance and is essential to health. However, too much cholesterol in your blood can be harmful. Cholesterol is produced in the liver, but can also be found in certain foods, such as those high in saturated fats. There are many types of cholesterol. The main type involved in atherosclerosis is called LDL-C, or bad cholesterol. Another type of cholesterol, HDL-C, is called good cholesterol. It's important to increase HDL-C as well as reduce LDL-C when treating high cholesterol. A normal artery wall consists of 3 main layers: a thin, smooth layer that lines the inside of the artery to help blood flow, a muscular, elastic layer that helps the artery pulse to push blood around the body, and a tough outer layer to protect the artery. The exact cause of atherosclerosis is not known, but several factors, including smoking, high blood pressure, diabetes, and high cholesterol, are known to damage the smooth lining of the artery and contribute to atherosclerosis. Once this layer is damaged, the bad cholesterol, LDL-C, can get into the wall of the artery. There are 4 key stages in the development of atherosclerosis. The body tries to defend against the invasion of LDL-C into the artery walls by activating specialized cells called macrophages to consume the LDL-C. They become enlarged cholesterol-enriched cells called foam cells that are embedded in the vessel wall. The accumulation of foam cells can be seen by the presence of fatty streaks in the vessel wall. As the fatty streaks grow, the body tries to protect the artery from them by surrounding them in a fibrous capsule. At this stage, the growth is called a plaque. As the plaque gets bigger, the body tries to preserve the blood flow through the artery. The plaque expands into the elastic layer, which stretches in order to keep the opening of the artery the same. If the plaque continues to grow, its expansion will eventually intrude on the inner opening of the vessel, as the elastic layer cannot stretch anymore. This reduces the ability of blood to get through the artery. At this stage, physical symptoms such as angina may appear. Also, over time, calcium may be deposited in the plaque, making it hard and inflexible. This reduces the ability of the artery to expand to increase blood flow when needed, for example during exercise. As the plaque grows into the artery opening, it squeezes the blood through an ever smaller gap. The resulting increase in pressure at the narrowing can damage the capsule covering the plaque, which may then rupture, resulting in a blood clot that can completely block the artery. Depending on the location of the blockage, the consequences, such as stroke or heart attack, may be severe and could be life-threatening. Atherosclerosis is progressive, and it can take many years before symptoms appear. But some people can have no symptoms even with extensive atherosclerosis and are at risk from sudden death. The symptoms depend on the site of the affected artery. In the heart, it can manifest as chest pains, angina. In the brain, as a type of mini-stroke called transient ischemic attacks, and to the legs as a cramp-like condition called intermittent claudication, which can result in amputation of the limb. If a plaque ruptures, the resulting blood clot may block the artery and cause a heart attack or a stroke, which can often be fatal. Atherosclerosis may cause the artery wall to weaken, causing it to bulge under the pressure from the blood. This bulge, called an aneurysm, can rupture, and the resulting bleed, called a hemorrhage, can be fatal. We hope, after this presentation, that you understand how the bad cholesterol LDL-C contributes to cardiovascular disease and atherosclerosis, and what that means for your health. We also hope you appreciate why always taking your medication, as prescribed by your doctor, is so important in maintaining low LDL-C and high HDL-C in order to reduce your cardiovascular risk.
Alrighty then, so maybe Pastor had something about that brown cholesterol. so that's it in a nutshell. One of the most significant contributions that bad cholesterol can make to our health. And unfortunately, in the time you took to watch that video, at least 2 people had a heart attack in this country. And in the time you took to watch that video, at least 1 person died from a heart attack or a stroke in this country. So something to really think about. Now, we're going to look at some slides that Sister Harris was very generous in donating, and that will help to guide our talk. Cholesterol, how we can manage it and how it can help us to stay healthy. What is it? As you saw in the video, it's a fatty or lipid product. It is actually produced mainly in the liver, but all our cells in our body can make cholesterol. And why is this so important? Cholesterol helps to form the wall of the cells in every tissue, in every organ, in every system of our body. That's how important cholesterol is. And so our Creator, in His wisdom, made it possible that our bodies could produce the cholesterol we need. We have approximately 1 gram of cholesterol that our body produces every day. And at any one time, there's about 30 to 40 grams of cholesterol floating around in our body. Our diet, especially in this region, contributes at least 300 milligrams of cholesterol per day. I would challenge anyone to find that low of a level being consumed in our population. Is probably much higher. And so, as it says here, one of the things we're very concerned about is keeping it at a low or healthy level. You go to your doctor, you do a cholesterol test, and the magic number for your total cholesterol is?
100.
Very good. On the lab, it usually says 200. Anything less than 200. Your LDL, they usually want it to be less than 100. Your HDL for men, they want it to be above 40, for women above 50. Above 60 is what they call cardioprotective. The higher your good cholesterol, it actually helps you. We're going to look at ways that we can keep the bad one down and the good one up. So what are the things that can increase the level? Stress, diabetes, obesity, kidney disease, hyperthyroidism. And let's talk about stress a little bit. Anybody has stress? What is one of the ways you can control your stress? Any idea? I just learned a neat thing this weekend about mind-body control, and it's all about breathing. Breathing the good stuff. Hold it for 4 seconds. Breathe it all out. And that simple relaxation technique, if you do it for a few times before you go to bed at night, guess what? Sleep better. It reduces your stress. If your kids are acting up, do it too. It works. Diabetes, unfortunately, is now what is known as a risk factor for heart attacks. If you have diabetes, your doctor is going to have a serious talk to you about preventing heart disease and how to control your diabetes so that you don't end up with a coronary or with a stroke or some other problem. That's a whole other topic, of course. The cost effectiveness of lowering cholesterol, as you can see, it's in the billions. Prevention can save much more than I'm seeing on this slide. And the costly side effects of the medications, when you are started on a medication, one of the things your doctor will do is run some tests to see what your liver function is, to see what your kidney function is. And if you ever complain of muscle pain, they're going to run some tests to see what's the level of the muscle enzyme in your blood. I had a Hispanic lady in East Texas, and this was the first and only time I noticed all 3 problems in one person. She came to me, she was complaining of pain in her thighs and her arms, and she said, oh, and also my urine looks funny. You know, it's starting to look dark. Ran the test, and she had her liver enzymes up, her kidney function was off, and her muscle enzyme was up. Something that I've never seen before, but it does happen. So you can have any of those or a combination of when you use some of the medications. And that's why you have to have a serious talk with your doctor if they are prescribing medications and ask them, can I do this naturally? Can I avoid this medication for now? Some years ago, Lipitor, you've all heard of Lipitor, was the #1 selling drug in North America. Okay, that's the United States and Canada, Lipitor. Now there are multiple other indications for these medications, including people who had stroke to help them with their cerebrovascular disease and other things. So believe me, it's costing a pretty penny. The classification of the cholesterol, as you know, there's the good, the bad, and the ugly. What's not shown here is the triglycerides, which we talked about in our last little spiel on heart disease. But this gives you an idea of what they're made up of and how many we should have, how much of each we should have in our body. Sources of dietary cholesterol. We know that cholesterol is found in animal products. Now, in plant products, there's a different type of cholesterol, if you please. And the interesting thing about it is that the animal products tend to be reabsorbed into our body and get stuck there. When we eat the plant cholesterol, they block the receptors for the animal fat cholesterol. So they get eliminated. Not only that, we don't retain the plant cholesterol in our body. See? So the plant cholesterol are like the good guys. You know, they block, you can't get in here, you know. Keep out the bad ones. And they don't get absorbed or cause any harm as the animal products do, which is very interesting. Now, here's the content of cholesterol in milligrams that we'll find in 3 ounces of different food products. You notice that food grains, nuts, vegetables, the things that we've been admonished to have generous amount of, have 0 cholesterol. And it starts with non-fat milk, 4, gets to 2%, 18. How much percent is in non-fat milk? If there's a 1% or 2%, how much you think is in in regular milk, whole milk? Yeah, I thought so too. It's actually 3 point something percent. So it's 3 to 4, yes, 3 to 4%. So when you're drinking 2% milk and you think, oh, I'm doing good, 2% of 100%, you're barely, yes, you're barely taking 2/3 or, maybe almost a half of what you take if you're drinking whole milk. Very interesting, isn't it? And as you can see, look at the difference between the cholesterol level.
Yes.
So whole milk has 33, 2% has 18. Right. Got milk. So interestingly enough, the egg white has 0, but as we go down the list, ice cream, butter, large eggs, tuna, clams, crabs, as we get deeper and deeper into the animal products, we see what? A significant increase in the amount of cholesterol. So if you have beef kidney, 3 ounces, that's probably a total of what we should normally consume, and that's recommended by the Dietary Association of America. Don't eat beef brains, okay?
Yeah.
Mary.
Don't do that. In Romania, actually, it's very expensive.
Really?
Oh yeah, the liver fats.
And see
Only
how...
the rich people can buy.
Wow. Oh, and you probably saw it was right there beside caviar. Yeah, go rich people.
Hey, Tom. You may not know this. Any idea why sardines are so high?
No, I'm not sure. But if caviar is high, and that's a fish product, I can just imagine along with seafood and other things. Yeah. You like sardine?
Yeah.
Oops. Okay. Don't worry, you'll get to do more natural remedies. All right, so benefits of the good cholesterol. One of the things some people don't know is that it's a precursor of vitamin D. What's the largest organ that our body has? Excellent, our skin. Guess what's in our skin? It's those same cells that have?
Cholesterol.
Bingo. What happens when sunlight hits your skin? It converts it and helps it to make it into vitamin D. So people who don't live in areas that get regular sunshine, that can be a problem for them. And that's why sunlight in our Life Start mnemonic, one of the natural remedies, is so important to help us keep the cholesterol levels low. It also acts as a precursor in the synthesis of various hormones, including cholesterol, other hormones, including reproductive hormones like testosterone. So cholesterol is extremely important. I would say it is essential for our body. And that's why our Creator made it so that we can produce our own. And we don't need to substitute it. Benefits, forms and maintains cell walls. We talked about that. Helps adjust the cell temperature, insulate the nerve cells. That myelin sheet around the nerve cells that conduct important information in our body. It also is involved there. We talked about hormones. It makes up bile. As a matter of fact, that's where it's excreted. The cholesterol that our body gets rid of is through the liver, helps to get it into the biliary system in the form of bile, and comes out, number 2. Right. It helps improve memory function. Very important. And this is what happens when we look at the relationship with death rates, especially and this one is an example per 100,000 men, compared to serum cholesterol in your body. Notice how the curve looks pretty decent at 140, 150, 160, and then as it goes up some more, it gets real high. The debate is usually how low should your cholesterol be, and for those of you who have a heart doctor, they'll tell you as low as possible. They never really give you a number. They may tell you, okay, if you don't have any other significant health risk factors, it should be under 100, your LDL. If you do, they want it to be less than 70.
Doesn't exercise play a lot in this?
Oh, yes.
In this respect. There's been a lot of research over the years. The earliest one I can think of is way back in the, 60s or 70s, where they examined the Aborigines for an extensive period of time. Their diet is mostly meat. But they have at least at that time, had very little, if any, heart problems or cholesterol buildup. And they contributed to the exercise because they had to run literally miles a day to get their meat. And then I'm thinking too of the Eskimos, going back to your vitamin D and the cholesterol. Their cholesterol is very high because all they eat is fish and bear products, and they get very little sun.
Right.
So, and the argument still is argued today, is that the cholesterol, or is it other things that we're not doing to prevent a buildup, like exercise? Because you measure what people did in the old days, the amount of exercise, they died of other things. They didn't die of heart attacks as much as we do today.
You're absolutely right. Even in this country, a lot of study has been done between the 1950s and now, and they would look at some of the post-mortem tissue for some of the veterans. And surprisingly enough, there is a significant increase in the fatty streaks and other, risk factors for heart disease. And if they also plotted it along activity levels, along the diet that they were eating, along many things. And these skinny World War II guys seem to have done much better than the veterans of our time, Operation Enduring Freedom and so forth and so on. Also, one of the things, as we go through the talk, we're going to look at the natural remedies to which you alluded, because our aim is to look at how come there are some people who can live to be 100 years old and still function very well in these blue zones. And a lot of it is has to do with activity, how much intake you have, interpersonal relationships, faith belief, and so forth. And one of the things I always find interesting is that if we look at the U.S. versus other countries, and I'm talking France, the UK, I'm talking places like Belgium, Mexico, what we thought was going to be a big issue, smoking or cigarette use, we thought that was going to be a contributing factor because they seem to smoke more than we do, yet we're dying before they do and have more problems, obesity-related stuff, arthritis, heart disease included, etc. And they narrowed it down to one factor. Unfortunately, it's our sedentary lifestyle and some of the stuff we eat and, getting obese. A lot of these other countries that have these high smoking levels, they seem to have a bigger push for preventative medicine and use of exercise, as you mentioned. They have more walking parks, and that's why there's an initiative in this country to build more parks and walkways, promote wellness centers and that kind of thing. The NFL is trying to get kids to move for 60 minutes a day. So there's a big push now for us to focus on the activity and the weight issue, because since 1990, we have just, exploded in terms of that factor. So not only do the natural remedies help with the heart disease, the cholesterol levels, the weight, and all that kind of stuff, helps with well-being, depression, addictions. So it's very holistic, if you please. But one thing, just like you mentioned, the activity, physical activity, that's something that we've almost given up.
Thank you.
Good point, good point. So here are some results of the different diets. We saw where if you had a 26% fat, 250 milligram cholesterol diet, after 5 years, you'd have 6% decrease in your total cholesterol. And your angiography results, that's the amount of buildup or arteriosclerosis, showed these numbers: 6% regression, 15% no change, but 79% progression. Now, when you compare that to a 10% fat, 5 milligram cholesterol diet, you have 82% regression. instead of just, a mere 6%. So the fat content seems to have something to do with it, and the cholesterol content even more. We talk about this heart trial that was published in the Lancet Journal, July of 1970, and this was done by cardiologists. This was done by the medical fraternity, members of the medical fraternity, and they showed that you can reverse heart disease with simple lifestyle changes. No smoking, and I hope it's in the next slide. Here we go. No animal products except egg whites, non-fat dairy, 75% complex carbohydrates, 15% protein, less than 5 milligram of cholesterol. Who can eat that? I don't even know. Unless, probably. But no caffeine, and the calories were not restricted, you know this. A lot of people tend to count calories. Oh, this has 500, this has 300, I'll eat this. Now they're realizing it's not just the caloric content, but it's the actual percentage of cholesterol, or the amount of cholesterol. So that was a big breakthrough in the lifestyle heart trial done back in 1990, published in the journal way back then. So they are even now promoting healthier lifestyles. There's a cardiologist in Houston. When he learned about this, he decided to use plant-based diet to help his patients. And now he has a cafeteria in his practice. And they do, plant-based products. He is convinced, he has seen the medical literature, he has seen patients who would come in barely able to walk, having difficulty breathing, numbers just poor. He mentioned a case of a lady who was in the hospital, and they were trying to get her a hospice referral. Okay? Now, you know that hospice usually means you have a terminal condition, you have about 6 months to live or less, and we're just going to make you comfortable. And so he had a serious sit down with this lady, and he was able to reverse her heart disease, and a lot had to do with the diet. Of course, had to give up the smoking and other things, some exercise, move it or lose it. But this cardiologist in Houston, of all places, these guys are catching on. So it's out there. The medical fraternity now is getting more and more educated and more convinced, and they're doing something about it. So, yep. Low-fat vegetarian diet, stress management training, smoking cessation, moderate exercise, social and emotional support. And all of these are components of our lifestyle natural remedies. Let's look at a few more. Exercise. Number 1, walking. Thank goodness they didn't say running. Walking. Okay, walking. You don't need to swim or ski or run or anything like that. Just walk. Just walk. Choose somewhere safe. Get some comfortable shoes. Get a walking buddy if you can. Dog can work. And go walking. Very important. And it shows you that about 3 hours per week, at least 30 minutes or 20 to 30 minutes per session. And they talk about the heart rate and stuff, which I don't really pay attention to. As long as you get moving. Don't get bogged down with the numbers. If the dog gets tired, turn back. You're overdoing it. Make sure you're hydrated, please, and avoid walking at times of the day when the sun is at its maximum intensity. Okay? We don't want you to get a heat stroke or something. And these were the changes that they had in the lifestyle heart trial. Significant changes, as you can see, in basically a 1-year period, cutting down the cholesterol level to under 100 easily. More changes with the HDL, boosting it up. Top 5 foods to lower your numbers. Here we go. Oatmeal, oat bran, high fiber foods. You don't like oatmeal? Oh, okay. When I worked in East Texas, they had a running joke. Whenever it was my birthday, they'd give me a box of oatmeal and wrap it up in a nice little fancy paper, because I do oatmeal every day. They thought that was very funny. Until we had a talk with the GI doc, and he said, if you had oatmeal every day, you could reduce a lot of the GI problems you have and lose weight. And everybody turned and looked at me. I think they wanted to know why I wasn't losing weight. But they knew I went to the potty regularly, so that part was okay. Now, omega-3 fatty acids in veggies, of course, nuts like almonds, walnuts, other nuts, any nuts, get your hand on nuts. Chia seeds, oxidant-rich foods, foods with added plant sterols. Now, one of the things, another thing with some of this food is that, in my humble opinion, it doesn't put a heavy burden on your GI system. So you're able to digest it easily. You're able to go to the potty easily. You don't have to rely so much on Miralax and lactulose and all that other stuff. Also, it gives you, since it doesn't burden your stomach and your intestinal system so much, your brain thinks better. You feel better. So give it a try. Maybe the oat bran, not the oatmeal. And here are other cholesterol-lowering foods. The list goes on and on. Flaxseed. And the flaxseed, for those who can't do the natural stuff, we do have supplements. A little is better than none. And so if you do the Sam's thing or the Walmart thing, or Target, or wherever you can get some of that, prunes, pecans, etc., etc., apples. You have apples to stone dogs around here. You can go to Walmart. That's one thing you won't run out of. Red rice yeast, and also niacin. All of these things are helping the good cholesterol and keeping the bad cholesterol out of your system, which is what we want. Our body produces enough cholesterol, we don't really need to add, especially the bad cholesterol, to it. And here we have what's called a PS ratio, which stands for polysaturated and saturated fats ratio. Think of it this way. Polysaturated, plant, and liquid form. Think of saturated as soggy and just bulky or solid and animal, okay? And as you notice, if the ratio is greater than 2.0, that means the number on top is bigger than the number below. Some literature says if the ratio is greater than 1.0, what it does, it will tend to lower your blood cholesterol. Simply put, the more plant stuff you have, less animal stuff, the easier you're able to lower your cholesterol. And here we go again, list some of the ratios for different products. And as you notice, as we leave the meat and get over into the nuts and into some of the healthier stuff, you can see where the ratio goes up real high. I don't even know what black walnut is.
It's similar with the English walnut.
Good. Well, that thing has a ratio of 10. I mean, really? How do they crack it?
I don't know, but
They chew through it with teeth.
Oh, okay. They figure it out, huh? Maybe if we domesticate a few squirrels and put them to work. I'm kidding. But as you can see, the significant difference, pistachio, that's expensive, but also has a pretty good high PS ratio. And just another way of seeing how the plant stuff is better for us.
Doc, say again, what does PS stand for? I'm sorry.
Polysaturated
Okay.
versus saturated.
Okay.
So the polysaturated is the liquidy stuff,
Yeah.
the plant stuff, And the saturated is the animal stuff, the soggy, solid stuff.
Gotcha. The other side of this, though, is the fat ratio, because nuts are really, really high in fat. And you can get the same thing by eating, vegetables and things like that. Of course, you just got to eat
Much more,
Yeah.
right. I remember a nutritionist, and he told me something really weird one time. You know those bags of chips, Doritos and stuff that people like to eat? A small bag, not a big bag. He said the fat content in, let's say you should compare it to some spinach. You would have to eat 22 plates of spinach to get the same fat content in that one bag of chips. 22 plates of spinach to put, so, and he was being generous. He was, it's probably more. And like I said before, the plant products tend to block the receptors that the fat products would get attached to in our GI system and reabsorbed. And unlike the plant stuff that gets stuck in our system and causes harm, the plant stuff is eliminated. Probably why it contributes to our GI system functioning so well also.
There's a big difference between plant fat or nut fat and animal fat. That's why that is lowers the cholesterol and the animal fat.
Right.
It's different fat, that's all.
Right. And this was funny. They kind of switched the diets around. Started out with some animal protein on the top in the red, switched them to vegetable protein. Look what happened. Fell right down. And those who were on the vegetable protein, they switched them to animal protein. They went up. There was some famous research done in World War II. When the Germans took over certain countries, they would raid these folks of their meat supply. Remember, you didn't just go to Walmart and look for a nice cut of lamb or whatever. They had cows and pigs running around. And the Germans decided, no, we need that for our fighting soldiers, And what they noticed was during the time of German occupation, guess what? You had a sharp decline in cardiovascular diseases and death related to cardiovascular problems and cholesterol in these farmers, in these villagers. Okay? But after the German occupation and they started again with their, guess what happened? The rates went up again. Interesting, huh?
Something similar happened in regards to the time of the Bolsheviks over in Russia, the czars. And the rich people thought they would be much healthier if they ate white bread. And so they gave that dirty old dark bread
Yes.
to the poor people. And the poor people benefited and the rich people.
We didn't. Imagine that. Sometimes being poor can be a blessing. I think I ate better when I was poor. I exercised much more when I was poor. I didn't eat as much. And had a bunch of energy. Poor can be a good thing. Don't knock it. Don't knock it. I see it all the time. Immigrants come to this country. There's a pediatrician from Nigeria. And when he came to this country, he discovered that he could get two cheeseburgers for the price of one. And so, having such a busy schedule, he, drive up to the drive-thru, 2 cheeseburgers, boom, drive back to work, and oh, this is delicious, this is wonderful. Unfortunately, it caused him to put on a ton of weight that he was unrecognizable by some of his Nigerian colleagues when they met a year or so later. He had gotten so big and they said, what are you doing? And sadly, he had to confess. He was actually eating a lot of the wrong things, and that was messing up his constitution and stuff. So, so just another reminder of how, especially immigrant population that comes from rural areas where you had to work, you had to farm, you ate a lot of plant products. When they sent you outside as kids, you went outside, you played, you ate guavas and mangoes and anything you can get off a tree. You didn't come in, you didn't go to McDonald's or Pizza Hut. You just didn't have that. And so did well. But when they come to the United States of America and they see all this fast food and it's cheap and it's easy, and oh, I suffered when I was in my country. Now I can afford to, indulge and I can treat my kids. But we're kind of doing something dangerous to our kids. This weekend down at Covenant Children's Hospital in Lubbock, they're looking at the changes the diet has done to our kids since 1990. And the blood pressure has gone up significantly, epidemic. The cholesterol, and that's a huge issue now with kids. We're having kids who are having heart attacks in their teens.
Wow. Okay,
unheard of before. Kids, heart attack in their teens, their cholesterol through the roof. So it's very unfortunate that even the kids who sometimes it's no fault of their own. I mean, they don't really get to choose sometimes. They don't have the ability to buy what they can, but unfortunately they suffer too, and it's becoming a problem. Garlic and the effect on cholesterol and triglycerides. In a nutshell, it's a good thing. The role of nitric oxide. This is a chemical, and part of this, I don't know if you heard it in the video, but it also creates a relaxing factor in our blood vessels so that they're not so constricted, so that when the blood goes through, they don't tear against the blood wall and cause problems, especially with those plaques. The problem is, as you saw in the video, the cholesterol gets trapped by the macrophage, forms foam cells, covers with a little fibrin cover, turns into a plaque, and then here comes the calcium and gets deposited in there. It gets so rigid, it's not relaxing, especially when your blood pressure goes up when you try to exercise. And that's why some people hate exercise, because we have a few people who overdo it. They already have plaques loaded in their heart, and guess what? They rupture, heart attack. It's because he was exercising, I tell you. So one of the things that's recommended is that before you do an exercise program, you can go to your doctor and have them look at your levels. And one of the new tests that they do now is looking at the calcium content in the arteries that supply blood to your heart. There was a big issue about that here in Texas, a lawmaker down in San Antonio. And if you ever see the documentary, The Widowmaker, you'll understand a little bit more of what I'm talking about. This test they do for folks who are employed to NASA, the pilots, okay? It's a cheaper test compared to seeing you when you finally get sick, putting a stent in, because let's face it, America is a sick care society. We're not big on prevention. Come see us when you have your heart attack. We have the best hospitals, we have the best cath labs, we have the best cardiologists in the nation. We can put in a stent in whatever, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. That's unfortunately what we're about. However, this lawmaker was trying very hard to get this test passed in Texas so that people's insurance would pay for it. Because it costs, in some cases, it costs less than $100. All right? A CAT scan, low radiation, and you can tell how much calcium load is in the vessels, and that can direct which way to go in your treatment. The doc can say, okay, let's do this lifestyle thing. Or doc can say, whoa, cath lab, now. And that would save a lot of people who are dying suddenly from heart attacks. The tragedy of that story is that his own brother died from a massive heart attack. His own brother was a victim of what we call the widowmaker. And so it's personal for him. And so he continues to lobby for that. But of course, you're going up against big healthcare. Healthcare is now corporations with CEOs, and it's a struggle. It's about making money. And so stent, test. It's a huge. The fellow who invented the stent was a physician out in California. And when he showed it to this businessman, he looked at it and he said, this looks like something I can put in a box and sell and make a lot of money. Interesting, huh? And that's where we are today. Check it out, the Widowmaker. All right, back to cholesterol. Arginine content of food, and this is also another good thing that I'm sure Sister Harris will tell you more about, and it gives you how much the content is and how it helps with keeping our cholesterol down. Host of benefits to a total vegetarian diet. Now, caution, you may not be able to do this overnight, and there are some people in our society who may not be able to do it at all. But they can make small changes, and it can do well if they go in the right direction. Some people can quit smoking cold turkey. The literature says that's the best way, but others don't. They struggle back and forth till they finally do. So go easy on the vegetarian hammer. But look at all the benefits. Zero cholesterol, low saturated fat, high fiber, zero animal protein, zero heme iron, rich in antioxidants, rich in folic acid, B12, promotes weight control. And of course, spirit of prophecy, grains, fruits, nuts, vegetables constitute the diet chosen for us by our Creator. These foods, prepared in as simple and natural a manner as possible, are the most healthful and nourishing. She had all that back then, eh? Way before the science caught up. Amazing. Now, especially harmful are the custards and puddings in which you have that combination. Milk, eggs, sugar. Free use of milk and sugar together should be avoided. She was onto something, eh?
Cholesterol and sugar together.
Yep. Poison, actually. So here we're looking at different things we can do with the milk. Soy milk, I kind of like almond milk. My wife hates it, but that's another story. I noticed that cows have a higher cholesterol content than goats or sheep. Eggs, high in cholesterol, unnecessary to ingest cholesterol. Sugar, major role in blood cholesterol levels. And you saw where it was one of the factors that damaged the inner lining of our arteries, sets us up with arteriosclerosis. And here's some daily recommendations by the Mayo Clinic. They say less than 300 milligrams. I would say, as you notice in the study that they did, they went for 5 milligrams. So 300 in some people's book is just way too high, way too high. And our recommendation, of course, 0, if possible. Cut back on sugar intake if you can, please. People with higher intakes of added sugars more likely to have lower levels of their good cholesterol and higher levels of their triglycerides, which I call the ugly cholesterol.
John,
Yes, sir.
I'm currently reading this book written by a chemist / nutritionist, and among other things, she talks and she gives a complete explanation of the process of making sugar, whatever color, and the process is different in regards to that. And you would be amazed how many poisons, literal poisons, that are put in at various levels in order to make white, brown, molasses. It is not good for us.
No. And if you notice, in our society, whatever you can do to make a product last longer seems to help it sell more. Wonder Bread, back in the day, they tried to figure out how can we let the bread last longer in the pantry. And they figured out by removing what you call the wheat germ,
Yes.
and just leaving that washed out flour thing, that the bread could stay on the shelf for weeks. And they were like, yes, we can sell more bread, we can make more profit. Same thing with many other things. Some of the preservatives that go into some of the food we eat now is really, really working against us. You no doubt you heard about the new category that smoked meat is placed in now. It's now in category 1 of carcinogens. It's the same category that you find cigarette smoke. It's the same category that you find plutonium. So when you look at, bacon strips, just think of little cigarettes or plutonium pellets on your plate. And so smoked meat, cured meat, all that kind of stuff, the stuff that can last longer or taste better, sometimes is not really good for us.
And yet we've known that for years, the China study. that
Yes.
lasted For 20 years.
Yes.
Produced this and other information very much like this.
Yes.
Any charred meat and meat that has smoke introduced to it is equal to a charred meat.
Yes. And
This is cancer and some of these other things.
yes, they are direct carcinogens. That means they cause cancer, beyond a shadow of a doubt. Now, I know some of you like to read books. I like to watch documentaries. The China study is also mentioned in the documentary Forks Over Knives. If you can have a look at that, that would be awesome. Another documentary, that I think I mentioned it before, What the Health. I did not realize that how many non-religious people are catching on to some of these things. Even world-class athletes who are performing better because they've cut out some of the stuff that was harming them in their diet. So if you see What the Health, it will really open your eyes. And they showed real people. I can't get this image out of my mind with this lady who could barely move around her apartment, and the medications she was taking. I don't even know how she was alive. Some of that medication should have been interacting or killing her just by the sheer amount of meds she was taking. And then to see her walking outside, no walker, and losing weight, doing well, less medications. One lady got rid of all of them. That was powerful. That was powerful. And I must say, as physicians, we're steeply trained in traditional medicine, pharmaceuticals and that kind of thing, because of how the system is. When you watch that documentary, What the Health, you're going to realize that some of these industries, the pharmaceutical industry, the dairy industry, are huge sponsors of the American Heart Association, the American Diabetic Association. So unfortunately, some of the recommendations that they make, including the diet, yes, very, very, very interesting. Check it out if you can. Something to keep in your library.
What was the first documentary you said?
Forks Over Knives. Yes, Forks Over Knives. The Widowmaker, What the Health. Yes, those are good, nice movie night stuff. And they're on Netflix, I believe. So if you have Netflix, that's cool. We used to have, what was the name of that video store, Hastings? Yeah, but I think they're out of business now. So it's a little bit difficult. Some of you may have Amazon, or you can, order depending on your preference. So the top 5 foods that feed cholesterol, we know about the dairy, the processed meat. Fast food fries. Oh boy.
French fries.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry, Morgan. I know. Tropical oils, baked goods. This killed me. For years, my mom always baked on Friday evening. That was part of the Sabbath meal preparation. Macaroni and cheese, sweet potatoes, scalloped potatoes. Bread puddings. Ugh. And I saw this and I was like, man, seriously? Yeah, don't tell my mother. Exercise, which we talked about before. And as you can see in all of our talks, how to reduce these things naturally, whatever it is, blood pressure, diabetes, cholesterol, exercise is way up there. It increases the HDL, the good cholesterol, which is nice. Here it says it stimulates the enzymes to move LDL to the liver. That helps to get rid of it. This pointer isn't working so great. And slimming down can lower total cholesterol levels. So just to keep that in mind here. Excess weight increases your bad cholesterol. And we talked about the times in terms of, start out slow. start out slow. 5-10 minutes, no big deal. And for those who like to walk in their neighborhood, if it is a safe neighborhood, you know, you lower your cholesterol, but you get bitten by a dog or run over by a truck. That would not be good. Not be good. Not good. So, yeah, there you go. Golf. You know, or if you live near to a school that has a nice little walkway or park, somewhere safe, as I said, do it when it's comfortable, convenient. Brisk walking, swimming, that's an issue here, just because they close the pools, at least the outdoor pools after a while. And I heard that the YMCA's, most of them had indoor pools, but they closed those too. So I don't know. I think they're trying to open one over here on the north side in memory of that gentleman who died the other day, the funeral director. Right. I think they're going to try and open another one. That would be good for especially those who can't afford to go to the Amarillo Club. Cycling, jogging, aerobic exercises. Another thing you notice now about these exercises, there are a lot of products where you can do stuff at home, in the comfort of your own home, lightweight stuff. If you have the time, you can put in the video, or you can go online. There are a lot of exercises you can get online now, free, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, just to start out. It takes a little bit of discipline if you're alone. If you have a partner, that's always easier. Then that can work against you too, it depends. but if you have a motivated partner, it really helps. Water, this is so important. We talked about water many times in terms of hydration. And what we don't look at sometimes is what it does at the cellular level. You see, when we get dehydrated, what happens? The body has to produce more cholesterol to firm up the cell walls, so more water will not exist in the interior. So the body, it goes into survival mode to strengthen the cells, and that causes a bump in our cholesterol, and that can be a result of dehydration. So very important point there in terms of water, the best beverage that we can have. Sunshine, we talked about this before, how it is turned into vitamin D through the skin. And this is very important also for our bones. Exercise, sunlight, our immune system, very important the sunlight is. And of course, temperance.
Now, how do you deal with that? Today we're seeing more and more skin cancer. You know, I was raised in New Mexico, and there was not any concept of protecting your skin. We did, and now people my age, I've had all kinds of skin cancer. So how do you protect yourself? You know, hey, use this 100-point facial cream and still get vitamin D.
Well, a couple salient points, and it ties in with temperance. If you too much of a good thing can be bad. So you have to really choose how much time you're going to spend in the sun, the time of day you're going to spend in the sun, what covering you're going to wear. We were in, was it Nevada? And we saw all these Asian tourists, okay? And these Asian tourists, oh, they were covered like Muslims. I mean, the hat, the long sleeve and everything. And when you look at the recommendations, that's exactly what it says. The sleeves help to protect your skin, and the hat, you know, the neck. And even Luke, who got a book from the library about the cowboys of the frontier, their hat not only helped to, you know, protect their ears and their forehead, but also the back of the neck. And their hat was fashioned in such a way to protect them from dangers from the sun. And of course a brush too, as they're riding through, you know, don't get slapped in the head or bruised. But using the protective gear that we can use, some people like to use sunblock. especially those who live near the ocean and spend a lot of time outside, which we probably don't. But also, so in getting enough sunshine, we always have to choose carefully not to overdo it and to use whatever protection we can. At the end of the day, I'm still big on having things checked out. Not all skin cancers are, caused by excessive sunlight. And so if you see something that's not healing, scabs over, heals a little bit, scabs over, bleeds, heal a little bit, still have it checked out so it can be removed in a timely manner. And dermatologists, that's their bread and butter, removing precancerous or cancerous lesions. So sunlight, yes. Temperance, just enough of a good thing. And it says here the intemperance brings on all these health risks, which we've talked about before. And caffeine. There is a interesting relationship between caffeine raising cholesterol. It hijacks a receptor in the intestinal pathway critical to regulation. And this is how it helps to elevate the cholesterol. So for those who think caffeine has nothing to do with cholesterol, voila. Another thing coming up here somewhere, alcohol, of course. They have been debates over and over and over again. We've had Loma Linda professors saying that it's okay to have a little wine. The folks in Italy that they studied in the blue zones, they have a little wine. And it was because of the saponins in the wine that helps with the cholesterol. But guess what? The same thing is found in the skin of grapes, so eat grapes. Also, recently, there was a study about alcohol consumption and health. And what they found was that folks who were more affluent, that means they were more educated, they looked about their health more often, they judiciously used just the right amount, they didn't indulge, they did better than others of a lower socioeconomic category. And it kind of makes sense, especially if you're using the alcohol for different reasons. Let's say you're having problems sleeping, you're having some stress. And you've heard the saying, I'm just going to drown my sorrows till tomorrow, put them on hold. So one of our Adventist physicians is saying that this sends the wrong signal. It's better to avoid it because we see what happens when we have alcohol-related accidents, homicides, et cetera, et cetera. We see the other issues it does to our stomach, our liver, our judgment. We have the domestic violence issues, which now is nuclear. Texas is struggling. Legislation, they have CPS on their target. It's big on their list. The governor, everybody, the speaker, everybody. And one of the things they're funding is ways to prevent domestic violence by having folks actually, go into the homes and educate folks, conflict resolution and stuff like that. And I think that came up with something about alcohol use, And some of us remember the days when, and I still remember my dad's uncle. He'd work all day in the field, come home, take a bath, head out to the rum bar, because that's where he socialized with the guys and stuff like that. But unfortunately, it led to GI malignancy. And loved him to death. But he unfortunately didn't know what we know. And, forget about the falls and the trauma and the fighting and all that kind of thing. Yeah, avoid it if you can. That's our recommendation. Air. Now, this was very surprising to me. They did a study about air pollution and cholesterol, and guess what? They found that people who were exposed to certain diesel exhaust particles, that their bad cholesterol was high. Yeah. Can you believe that? I didn't know about that one. UCLA air study. And that's why they're looking at some places like Hong Kong and other areas to see the whole thing about the cholesterol and why these skinny Asian people have issues, arteriosclerosis and that kind of stuff. So yeah, air pollution. So fresh air, one of our natural remedies and treatments in the lifestyle pneumonia. Yeah. They looked at the oxidation and the cell tissue damage resulting from the exposure of these free radicals, inflammation of the arteries that all contributed to arteriosclerosis. So something that for us to think about, eh? Go electric. I'm kidding. There's a country, which country is it that by 2020 they want to have all electric vehicles? I think it's the UK. There are some places in the UK that are pushing for that, partly because of the pollution and some dependence, of course, on oil products. But it might be a good thing to help us with our cholesterol too.
And the UK is what, about the size of Connecticut? I mean, it's not there.
Yeah, so there you go. Air, fresh air, part of our lifestyle. All right. Okay, that's the VA. You don't. Yeah, so air pollution, clogged arteries, all that good stuff. So more environmental stuff coming your way in terms of that. Now here is also important rest. Helps to cut stress and it helps to lower your cholesterol. I don't know, but more and more I think people are having difficulty sleeping. Now we're seeing more and more people asking for sleep aids. And so, Ambien, Resorium, Nesta, all those things are becoming more and more popular. And some people go hardcore, they want Valium or benzos. Usually we recommend sleep hygiene. Do not keep a library in your bedroom. If you can avoid having a TV or any distraction like that in your bedroom, good idea. Monitor the temperature, the lighting. All these things help with our sleep. Choose a good sleep pattern, yes. Avoid stimulants before going to bed, including exercise, coffee or whatever. Start with that, and that usually helps. And some of our mind-body techniques, deep breathing, relaxation techniques, whatever helps you to relax, that's always good. But we're having issues with sleep. And some people use the melatonin because it's natural, it's part of what our body makes to help us sleep. And that could be an idea. If you end up on some of these medications, go for a short-term use. Don't get hooked. There are people who have been on stuff for like months and years. It wasn't designed for that. But the pressure, when people want to sleep, it can be really difficult to say no.
We live in an instantaneous society.
Mm-hmm.
There's more stress than ever before. Back in the old days, we just had to worry about an Indian shooting us in the back of an arrow. Mm-hmm. Today, you get up in the morning, you got 10,000 stressors facing you right there.
This weekend they talked about exposure to, there was this psychiatrist, and she had an interesting recommendation or two. One of the things she recommended was to avoid tuning in too much to some of the news. It's kind of just poking you and creating this state of anxiety. She also recommended an electronics timeout period. Most people can do that well during worship time, which is awesome. But she mentioned mealtime. Mealtime, she says, now more than ever, there's not that interaction during mealtime. And so people sit down to have a meal and everybody's on stuff. There's no one to talk to. There's no one to de-stress with. Our techniques for relaxation, we don't use them as much as we used to. We like to be on the go. We like to be, go, go, go. And I saw a documentary where people in the financial district in London, one of the things the culture was encouraging is that you worked hard during the day, high production, but at night you also partied hard. And so these young people were resorting to, if they couldn't get prescriptions for legal medication, they're resorting to illicit drugs. And that's why some of the drug trade now is shifting their focus to Europe and the United Kingdom. And they don't seem to be as preoccupied with it becoming a problem as the war on drugs here in the U.S. So, and that's why if you see certain things changing, that's because they're shifting their focus now and taking some of these drugs to Europe, where they pay quite a lot of money for it. Even these wealthy stay-at-home moms who get bored out of their mind and need energy to do this and do that and whatever, there's now a slight increase in the use of illicit drugs and less sleep. So our Creator, in His wisdom, has always tried to give us what's best naturally. We just keep trying to find a way to get around it. We just, humans. So, and of course, trusting God. As has been mentioned time and time again, we need a power outside of ourselves to accomplish these things. The devil is very good at giving you the power to do bad things. Guess what? Our Creator is good at giving us the power to do good things and to help take care of our body. So we need to plug in as much as we can. Take time to build that relationship, tune in to what He has to say, and reap the rewards. How are we doing? Oh my. All right. I guess we can skip the questions.
You did well. This is a good presentation.
Thanks to Sister Harris again for the slides and stuff. And basically it just builds on a lot of stuff we've been going through with the natural remedies. So this is good. Any questions for Sister Harris? Thank you, everyone.
Oh, and you can stay here beside me for the question. Don't go anywhere. Any questions? Well, a comment? Okay, go ahead.
You know it.
Good. Well,
there's a text in the Bible, man, his lifespan 70 years, and sometimes he make it to the 80. But what does it say? It's full of all sorts of, stress and pain and misery.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
Every time I read that, I'm like, oh boy.
Read Ecclesiastes and then...
Oh yes, vanity, vanity. Oh boy.
Well, I know some of you know the Adventist Church, they have these lifestyle centers where they do the 18 days programs with vegetarian diet, actually plant-based diet, and they implement all this, the nutrition, the exercise, the sunshine, fresh air, temperance, rest, and trust in divine power. And I work in one of them, and we draw the blood in the beginning of the session, and after 18 days we draw again the blood, because we want to show them that actually it works. We never had one patient with a cholesterol the same. High cholesterol they come, lower after 18 days. Even in 18 days on the vegetarian diet, actually we put them on the vegan diet, total plant-based diet, the cholesterol was lower. all of them, no exception. One lady, actually, she was on a vegan diet. Her cholesterol was 220 still, very high, but it was because of the menopause. And we realized that the menopause was the problem. But normally will work, okay? And if you really implement the steps, will work. And now our exception, you know, if you have problem with the liver, of course the cholesterol will be hard with the natural remedies to lower it. But if the liver function properly and you implement these 8 steps, should help a lot. Yes.
I was going to say, you know, I don't think there are a few people that would argue with you about the effectiveness of this. The problem, it seems to me, in all my years that I dealt with drug addicts, alcoholic addicts, is that we send them to a rehab program, they get well, they learn all these things, then you send them back home to the same environment, and they turn around and we have the same problem here.
That's true.
There's no support system out here.
That's true. That's true. But do you know why it's failing? Is because we don't follow the blueprint. Ellen White tells that every church should have treatment room, hydro rooms, and should have cooking classes, and should be a sanitarium, actually, she calls them. And because we as church, we don't have the support group, when people go to our lifestyle centers and they go back home, we should pair them with the church. But because the church, we as a church, we don't practice, you cannot pair them at all. They go home and you cannot send them anywhere to have a support group.
2 quick points before I forget.
Okay.
In certain cases, there are genetically, associated diseases with people who have very high cholesterol, and this is some of them are beyond the natural remedies. They recommend, you will have to have certain interventions. So each case is individual. I always tell this to everyone. Each case is individual. The great majority, yes, can work with that, but there are always a few cases. So always recommend that they have the labs done and they be followed by both sides. That is very, very important. I remember there was this young man, and his dad had the same thing, triglycerides in the thousands. I don't know how he didn't end up with pancreatitis or anything like that, but he required a different regimen. The other thing, just what you said is true. The Adventist Church was known for 3 things. Whenever you came in contact with the Adventist Church, they had a church, they had a college, they had a clinic. And this model works very well, especially in third world countries. All the mission fields, you could count on that. You had a church, you had some sort of school or educational stuff going on, and you had some sort of health program, and they are all intertwined. Now there's the spouse of this, what is it, Mark Finley?
No.
She is doing her best to create a center of influence where that church is going to be open 7 days a week.
They have it already.
Very good. It was a very expensive project, but fortunately it was in an affluent community and had the good support, and miracles happened. And I think they're not only are they going to do well, but that is going to set the trend for other centers of influence, where you can get the spiritual side, you can get the health side, you can get the educational side, because that is what I believe is lacking. What is really hitting us at times is money, and sometimes the funding, which is things here are not cheap anymore, and sometimes it's easier to run something in India or the Caribbean or Africa than doing it here. Also, you have a lot of regulation. You have a lot of regulations. A physician here can go to Africa and basically give out stuff, go to Guatemala. I have a friend who goes down twice a year. You can take expired medications.
And give it to them.
Okay, you can give it to them. They can perform certain procedures and surgeries under certain conditions that we would consider inhumane or barbaric. yet you have people there who have tumors growing in their stomach, size of a watermelon, suffering for years. And yet, you know, these folks can go and make a difference. So there are a lot of little barricades to us doing what you mentioned.
Mark Finlay, just a comment and then Mark Finlay's church, already they open, and they have the two-storage church actually. They have the church down, but upstairs they made a classroom for cooking class, and they run cooking classes on regular basis, and they have a lecture, and they have even hydrotherapy rooms with sauna and everything. And they ask help from the school where I was working, Harlan, because they are more into the natural remedies. The students are going there often to do the treatments and do the cooking classes and everything. It's working, but it's true. You need to have help to do all.
Yeah, and I was thinking while you were talking, culture is a big thing in Europe. They're more. How can I say this? They're more social. They're more interactive. They like these, if you please, little cafes where they can go in and sit down and talk with each other, whether they know you or not. We're not that way here for the most part. We are very independent people. We certainly like our meat and potatoes. You know what I'm saying? The culture does create a gap between, let's say, what Europe has and is accomplishing in some of these areas, and what we're having trouble with.
I'm going to tell you a secret. Sometimes when I pray, I ask God to help those who we think can't or shouldn't or wouldn't do things to do it to help us. Because sometimes our message comes full circle. The fact that you have practicing physicians trained in some of the most illustrious institutions in this country doing what we're promoting, and that some members of our church are benefiting from that. We don't have to join a club or anything like that. I think that is very important. I know the gospel was preached to the Jews first and then the Gentiles and everything like that, but it came full circle. It came full circle. I believe that God can use others to make these things happen. Look at forks over knives. Look at some of the stuff that's happening now.
Adventist message, focus over knives and China studies, everything
Right.
what the Adventist church preached 160 years ago.
Right, and even some of the things that the AMA is accepting now and promoting,
Yes.
you would never ever hear of that before. So I believe with all my heart that even in some places where we least expect it, he is, bless you, he is performing miracles and using folks. And I always tell folks, just remember, these two kings, you had Saul and you had Nebuchadnezzar. Check them out, how they started out. Check out how they progressed and check out how they ended up. Just think about it. Saul, statue-wise, first king of Israel, anointed by greatest prophet to ever come along at that time, led out brilliantly at first, did so well. But things didn't go so well, especially when David came into the picture and the jealousy took over. And then committing some of those errors, consulting a witch. People who would have been eliminated or eradicated. Then look at Nebuchadnezzar, guy who laid siege to Jerusalem till people were eating human flesh. Think about that. Guy who, at the time, the head of the most powerful empire in the entire planet. Long before these other ones, and Alexander the Great and all that, and the Romans. Yet look how he ended up. He had to be humiliated a couple of times, but it worked. It worked. Guy ended up out there in the dew like a wild animal, but it worked. So sometimes I pray, I say, Lord, you can use anyone. And so I see your message is going out there. I see others participating. Help it to benefit us too. Even this movie that they did, Hacksaw Ridge, For years we knew about Desmond Doss. We had the
Yes.
documentary and stuff like
That's
that.
true.
But look at the impact now. A major, cinematic production on the big screen, and highlighting what this young man did, coming from where? Outside of our, So sometimes that's what I pray about, and I hope I'm not doing anything too wrong. We'll never let him talk again. But I believe God is using folks everywhere, and I'm just so grateful sometimes. I am human, and I wish we could do like what other people are doing, and yes, I feel a little jealous. Yes, I do. Why can't we have that too? But I'm just grateful for what we have, and sometimes it's just the little changes that make a huge difference.
That's true.
So yeah. So.
Well, next month will be Gift, and she will speak about osteoporosis, how to manage osteoporosis. And that will be next month, the last Sabbath in September. I think will be the 30th, I think. Then on the 24th of September, what? Will be Sunday. The cooking class. Oh, okay. We'll switch it 1 week before then. Will be the 23rd. Okay, we'll do it on the 23rd September. On 24 September, we'll start the cooking classes. And actually will be how to make bread, and will be 2 groups, because I know many ladies already told me they would like to learn how to make bread. And we'll have 2 groups, 3 o'clock, 1 group start, and the second group will start 4 o'clock, and we overlap as we do the bread. And we'll be here in the kitchen in the church. And no, on the cooking class will be on the 24th, that's Sunday, and the head lecture will be Saturday on the 23rd. Okay, and we'll continue with the cooking class now. We have the kitchen, we have the stove, and we'll do it in the church. And monthly we'll start to do certain recipes, and in that way we'll give you good recipes, and you may take something off from your table, but you put something good, because the changes are not easy when you want to do some good changes. You have to be sure that you have good, tasty food, especially when we talk about food. Because many times we don't do the changes because we don't know how to replace them. But as you get good recipes, then you may have more courage to replace certain recipes. I think we are ready to close. We want to thank you for coming. Thank you, Dr. Campbell, for helping us with the lecture. And let's close with a prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you, Lord, for this information. And thank you, Lord, that you create us in such a wonderful way that our body can regenerate, and our bodies can get in better shape and can be healthier. And we know that your healing hands is upon us, Lord. And we pray that we allow you to help us to be better stewards with our bodies. We thank you in Jesus' name. Amen. Have a good evening.